Today, we're here with a special guest, Mr. Matt O.
Hey!
So tell us a little bit about yourself for those who are not familiar with you.
I am the author. I brought my Doraemon, my magic bag here full of goodies.
Nice.
I'm the author of a book called Pure Invention, How Japan Made the Modern World. And this book is was my attempt to quantify why we, all of us, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you are one of us.
One of us, one of us, one of us.
Love things from Japan so much. Kind of talks about the post-war history of Japan through objects, products, cool stuff that we all bought and kind of changed our lives. That's what I do. I'm a writer here, former translator, localizer, video games and stuff, and collector of toys like you.
Yes.
But anyway, that's, I'm here probably for the same reason you are,
Yeah. I was never a big fan of Transformers.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, I'm gonna go now. See you.
As the Japanese say, I would categorize them as mindokusai. I liked the GoBots. I think I like the GoBots better.
Wow.
Yeah. I did have one Transformer at least. Bumblebee. I had one Bumblebee figure.
Right, which is ironically kind of the most go-body of the Transformers.
Right, yeah.
I'm really curious about this because that's rare in America. In Japan, the Machine Robo has a huge following.
Right.
Because they came out before the Transformers here and they competed with Hot Wheels cars.
Right.
And compared to a Hot Wheels car, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, Hot Wheels car that transforms, right? In America, it was reversed and they came out after the Transformers and they are, let's be brutally honest, a little bit, simpler.
That's what I like about them. They're more simple. They're simplified.
Yeah.
I don't have to, do calculations to get it transformed. My motto is if you can't transform it within 2 minutes, throw it in the garbage. All right, so you're a big fan of the Japanese robots, and those kinds of things, but your book goes way back into some of the earliest of the Japanese toy history.
Well, it's, every writer's kind of writing about themselves, no matter what they're writing about. And so I guess it's kind of, now in retrospect, it seems kind of obvious that if I was going to write about Japan, it was going to be through the lens of toys. And so even though I didn't approach this project that way at all, I was like, I'm going to write a serious history, about what Japan's kind of cultural pull is. And then after I make this kind of oath to myself, of course, it begins with a toy. And so I tracked down, in the book, I tracked down the first iterations of all of these kind of key products that transformed the way that we look at the world. And, things like I found the first karaoke machine, or I found the very first Hello Kitty product, or the very first portable game system, the Game Boy, the very first popular portable game system, things like that, and tried to get and interview the people who were involved in making them so I could figure out what made them tick. But the book opens in 1945, right after World War II, when a craftsperson in Kyoto made a tin toy Jeep out of tin cans. There was no raw material in Japan at the time, and he scavenged tin from the U.S. Armed Forces. And then with the help of he kind of had a makeshift studio in Otsu, which is a city right outside of Kyoto. And they hammered these Jeeps into shape, and it became this massive hit product. Just an absolute massive hit. He sold 100,000 of them by 1946. And this is a Japan destroyed by war. And it was very interesting to me that the first thing this is literally the first product of any kind that got made after World War II. It was a toy. And the fact that the Japanese chose to not only make a toy, but it became a success. This guy tapped into something, I think really says a lot about what makes Japan why they make so much cool stuff that we like. There's a sense of play. So you can see here, it's actually cut from a can. You can see the ridges from the top part of the can, but it's made of really thin tin. This is all scavenged. It's found art, so to speak. Back then, this was the only material available because Japan had used all of its raw materials to make bombs and planes and things like that. So there's also kind of beauty to me in that we're shifting from war to toys, to playthings. But the other interesting thing about this product was how many adults were interested in it. So there's a lot kind of in this moment, which is why I chose to open the book with it. And it's this is where the modern Japanese toy industry begins. It all starts from these tin toy Jeeps, the ones that Kosuge made, and these, I hesitate to even call them knockoffs. It's not like you can, copyright or patent the American Jeep. But this is where it all started from. If you collect sofubi, if you collect Transformers, if you collect die-cast models, whatever toys you collect from Japan, it all started with this tin toy Jeep, which is why I never leave home without it. No, actually, this is the first time I've ever taken this outside of the house.
One of the big topics in your book that you talk about, and that a lot of people are very familiar with, that I don't really cover much in my channel, but it would be interesting to see it in person.
Okay, look at this. So this is the very first Hello Kitty purse. This is actually the very first Hello Kitty product of any kind. This is a replica. I tracked down the original. It's in a vault. There's only one in existence. It's in a vault in Sanrio. It's protected by lasers, sleeping gas. Like, there's a giant boulder if you try to take it, and it comes like, it's like Hello Kitty's head, and it comes like rolling down at you. But yeah, so like, and so the helicopters, they're coming for us. They're coming. They know that I have this. So I really wanted to track it down, and I got pretty, close to the source. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to interview the woman who actually made the first illustration, because she retired like only a couple years after doing this, and
really?
has been kind of out of the life, so to speak, which was common back then. Like in the 1970s, you could do like an amazing design like this, but then if you're a woman, you hit 25, you got to get married, you got to have kids, and they wouldn't let you back in the workforce. When I was writing the book, I wanted to focus on all sorts of stuff, not just the stuff I liked. You can't really talk about like Japan cool, like, we like kaiju, we like robots, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But there's this whole like kind of feminine side of things, not just Hello Kitty, but also stuff like Sailor Moon, like the portrayals of women in anime have been getting progressively, I think, more like less sexualized and more like empowering. And so that's like a really interesting trend, I think, in Japanese pop culture, because Japan isn't traditionally associated with like progressive values for women, right? But yet, like, it created this stuff that really empowered little girls and then guys too. I mean, I love Hello Kitty. I use this purse. I would if I didn't, if I wasn't worried about damaging it. The problem is I'm like an obsessive toy collector, so I'm like, oh, this is going to be worth something someday.
Why didn't you buy two?
Exactly, I did, but I'm still obsessive about it. I mean, before Hello Kitty comes up in the book, of course, you have to talk about kaiju.
Yes.
This is like a Japanology Plus segment. I've never gone in one of these, or not in a really long time. Hello? Kaiju sofubi? Yes, I'd love some. Kaiju is a 1960s innovation, and like I did track down the gentleman who came up with the idea for making this. His name is Saburo Ishizuki. He's a former employee and later executive at Marasan and then Bullmark. And he's still with us. He's still very healthy for like a guy in his mid-80s. But he was the guy who came up with the idea for making these vinyl toys after Ultra Q came out in 1966. Up until that point, and I had a bunch of discussions with him, he was like, it was considered, the common sense in the industry of the era was that kids wanted to become what they were obsessed with. So like, they'd have dress-up kits, like costumes, like you'd want to become Gekko Kamen, Moonlight Mask. You'd want to become Astro Boy.
Right.
But he's like, no, I think they actually want to play with these like avatars of them. And so like, it's my thesis that these, and this is a replica. If you know these, they're way bigger in real life.
Yeah.
But the Marasan soft vinyl kaiju are the first true collectible action figures. Nobody just wants Pegura.
Right.
You need to have all the kaiju.
You need at least two.
Exactly. At least two. Shit. Psst. No, actually, this guy's got the slap going on. Ready? Psst. Psst. This guy, all he wants is money. Money making. Wait, we need to get it. I was never a toy smasher as a kid. Like I would always see kids like smashing their Legos together or whatever. Like there's always the destructive kid in like every preschool / elementary school / and some grow up to be destructive adults.
Oh, really, fool? Really? Stop looking at me, Swan.
I would assume in a world where kaiju were real, you wouldn't actually take much pleasure in playing with these. I don't know. Maybe I would. when I first started writing this, I was like, oh, I'll do it by decade, you know, like one chapter, you know, in the 50s, one in the 60s, one in the 70s. But then I quickly realized, like, most of what we all associate with, like, kind of cool Japan stuff now emerged in the 90s. And, like, the 90s are such a pivotal time. See, the birds agree. It's such a pivotal time for, like, Japan and, like, us getting into Japanese stuff. Because, you know, Japan was flying high in the 80s, right? It was known as the bubble economy. Like, it was the world's second largest economy. Japan emerged as the world's second largest economy in, like, 1970, which is crazy. They had been not just bombed, they've been carpet bombed and then nuclear bombed on top of that just only a couple of decades before. And so it's crazy to grow out of that. So, like, Japan's, like, flying high by the 80s. It's like, you know, sports cars and, like, expensive art and, like, champagne, Dom Perignon. We don't drink Johnny Walker Black, we drink blue. You know, it's like party every night in the Ginza. I'm sure lots of hostesses and, like, you know, cocaine is being snorted and, like, everybody's having a great time. And in 1990, it all grinds to a halt. Like, it collapses. The economy goes into a tailspin and then crashes. And it ushers in this period from, like, 1990 to 2010 that everybody calls the lost decades. Everybody meaning economists. And it was just, like, apocalyptic time for young people. But that's when, like, the young people became these innovators by taking all of these consumer products around them and turning them into, like, kind of tools for navigating this like, post-industrial, late capitalist hellscape. Now we all live in that hellscape. We're all in that hellscape, right?
It's not the end of the world.
It's the apocalypse.
The way that we live our lives now is spent on, like, kind of Silicon Valley stuff, you know, like social media, you know, Facebook, you know, we use iPhones, but, like, the patterns, like the way that we actually live our lives, I'm not talking about specific things, the patterns were set in Japan in the 90s by young people. So that's, like, you know, for instance, it's, you know, Nintendo is flying high. That's when, like, you know, the Game Boy is huge. Look, see, I brought this with me. I actually bought this for the book. And I don't know, like, depending on how young you are, if you weren't around when this thing came out in 89 in Japan and 90 in America, like, this was the first portable device that, like, you had to have.
They said it wasn't humanly possible. All the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy. It's portable, it's in stereo, and its games are interchangeable. Game Boy comes complete with batteries and the outrageous new game Tetris. And for head-to-head competition, use Video Link and blow your opponent away. Game Boy, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
You would not be a full human being. Like, as an 11-year-old, like, you literally would not be a full human being without this. And, like, its functions are pretty, like, low-tech compared to... It's even working. Oh, it's actually working. Are pretty low-tech compared to, like, what we have now.
What game do you have in there?
I have Super Mario Land.
There we go.
That's our soundtrack, man. That's our soundtrack, man. When Super Mario came out in a portable format, just, like, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Wow, you can do this stuff and be on the go. Now, like, we spend our entire lives on cell phones, right? But, like, this is kind of the original cell phone. You know, it had the Walkman, and then you have the Game Boy. And this is a true fact, okay, that I learned when I was writing the book. Steve Jobs, who was obsessed with the Walkman, Game Boy, and Japanese portable electronics, he came so close to naming the iMac the Macman. His lawyer's like, Steve, you can't do that. It sounds like the Walkman. He's like, yeah, it sounds like the Walkman. And, like, you know, Steve Jobs famously doesn't really take no for an answer, but I guess he had to, like, you're literally going to blow up the entire company over this. But without the Walkman, without the Game Boy, you wouldn't have that kind of, like, Apple, the iPhone, like the iPod, which gave us the iPhone. Now we have the iPad, and, like, we spend our entire lives on little slabs of silicon now. Right. And, like, Japan pioneered that. Everybody knows Nintendo's a big company now, but they're just, like, one of many. Back in the 80s and early 90s, they were the only video game company.
Yep.
Like, what they made was the best-selling thing ever.
Until Sega came and challenged them.
Well, Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Right?
Genesis does.
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does.
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Yeah, so this park is, you know, it's a famous park for this area, for like Western Tokyo. But if you walk all the way to the end of one side, it leads us directly to the Ghibli Museum.
Yes, not the new one in Nagoya, but the old one. It's called Mitaka no Mori. Kichijoji is in Musashino, but it's adjacent to Mitaka.
Right.
And Mitaka is where Studio Ghibli's been located for a really long time. They actually used to be located in Kichijoji.
Yeah.
They moved out here, I guess when the rents got too high, I don't know. But yeah, it's great. The museum's here, and it's just a really cool park.
All right, it looks
made
like
it.
we're here.
We made it to the museum.
Yeah.
We survived.
We survived it through the treacherous forest, the telephone booths.
The kaiju on the slide.
Yeah, the kaiju's on the slide.
We made it through an entire round of Super Mario Land on the Game Boy.
Right.
It's amazing.
You guys didn't see it.
Do you come here? Have you been here before?
Yeah, I've been here a few times, and I actually just came last month for my students' graduation trip.
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, I'm glad that they reopened, and yeah, it's a beautiful place. If you've never been here, you should definitely come visit and check this place out.
Yeah, it's cool.
How about you? Do you often go here?
Oh, I live here.
What?
Totoro and I are dating. You didn't know?
I didn't know that.
We're together now.
Oh.
It's awesome.
Well,
So see you later.
see ya. Bye. Huh?
Matt Alt here. It's been a while, hasn't it? I have a riddle for you. What is a transformer that doesn't transform? Sounds like a Zen riddle, doesn't it? But there is an answer. And it's right here. The soft vinyl transformer that Takara made back in the 1980s. You know what that means? I'll be back.